Hello, I'm Austin Wilson, Chief Investment Officer at Hixon Zuercher Capital Management.
And I'm Josh Robb, Director of Wealth Management at Hixon Zuercher Capital Management. And today we are talking about the month of July, looking back on what happened and possibly looking forward to the future on what to expect. So today, Austin, start us off.
So I'm going to start top to bottom.
Top to bottom.
Best performing asset class to worst performing asset class.
All right.
Specifically talking equities today because there's been some crazy moves there,
Yes.
right? All right, July, mixed month. If you think about what worked and what didn't work, the MSCI, EAFE, the EFA we call it, this is a measure of developed market stocks, led the way, 2.46%.
EAFE, Europe, Asia, and Far East.
Something
Is that
like
right?
that. I think that's something like that, yeah. I just said the EFA.
Okay.
The EFA. US, large cap, mostly flat. S&P up 0.15%. Dow 0.41.
Okay.
So kind of flat for large cap US stocks there. However, when you start thinking about other asset classes, NASDAQ down 2.54%, mid caps down 1.55%, small caps down 2.64%, and emerging markets down 3%.
So July International was the spot that had a little more movement.
And yeah, up and down really, because the emerging market side of thing, which by the way, it's one of the things that were doing really well going into July, which would have been emerging markets, which would have been small caps, which would have been tech stocks recently, NASDAQ. Those are the ones that had the weakness in July. The other areas, the market, the developed international market, which had still done pretty well, they weren't leading the way. They held up comparatively better. And then U.S. large caps kind of in the middle. So not a terrible month by any means. One of the reasons for the mixed performance has to do with inflation and the Fed and all the things we're talking about, which can really come down to Iran, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But we got in the inflation reading for June CPI, came out in July, 3.53% year over year. What is that? Hotter than the Fed wants it to be.
Yep. Fed wants 2.
They want around 2. They want 2 on a core basis, and we're nowhere near that. So what does this mean? It means we're not going to be getting any interest rate cuts anytime soon. Which, if you would have asked us 6 months ago, 7 months ago, probably 2 cuts this year.
Coming into the year,
we're thinking 2 cuts maybe.
Yep.
Not going to be getting any interest rate cuts, and actually there's a decent likelihood of an interest rate hike later on this year. The more interest rate sensitive parts of the market don't necessarily like higher interest rates. That's not good for valuations. The bond market obviously hates higher interest rates because that's how bonds are priced. The bonds are not doing super favorable in this market we're in right now. And I think that is going to be key as we're going to continue to tick down the months throughout the rest of this year is what is inflation doing and what is that going to let the Fed do? If the Iran situation gets some permanent, I would say permanent because we've had puts and takes of things, permanent resolution, then I think they may still lean on continuing to be able to look through a relatively short-term supply shock.
Yep.
But if it continues to linger on, the trickle-down impacts of that could continue. Inflation could remain higher, and then you're probably likely to get an interest rate hike. So that is what we're going to be watching going forward. So stay tuned for July CPI coming out in August.
Okay. Sounds good. We usually have an interesting story. So I found one. This one's a little bit older, but it's the first I saw it. A lady attacked her sister with an EpiPen and stabbed her multiple times with an EpiPen. And when the police arrived and questioned her, her response was she was allergic to drunks. And her thought was stabbing her sister with the EpiPen.
Her sister was drunk?
Would sober her up quickly. So I don't think that's how it works. I'm not a doctor.
You read the package.
I don't
insert.
think the EpiPen is for that. So interesting. Always in Florida, weird things happen.
Yeah, Florida news story of the month. They'll get you. They don't do that anywhere else.
I haven't read anywhere else where the EpiPen has been used in that manner. But no.
So next up in news that's not EpiPen related.
Nope.
Iran. We talked about it a couple times. We had an interesting month of July as it came to Iran because there for around 13 consecutive days in the middle of July, towards the end of the July, we had more bombings, more the U.S. being aggressive on trying to shut down Iran in a lot of different ways, taking over particularly some of their nuclear sites, some of their energy sites, just a lot of continued attacks there, right? And that's because Iran has thus far backed away from they're trying to open up the Strait of Hormuz, and this really all goes down to energy trade and oil traffic. After the nuclear side of things, which I think still taking some time to work out. Well, towards the end of the month, there was some reprieve, and there was some discussion in the last week of the month that, hey, negotiations are back on the table.
Maybe.
So after 13 more days of bombing, boom, we're having discussions again, and equity markets sort of got to rebound from some of the uncertainties.
In the beginning of July, some tankers started actually going through. True. So for a little while, you actually had some flow of those tankers through the strait, and then it kind of stopped.
Historically speaking, about 90 tankers per day go through the Strait of Hormuz. That's a lot of oil.
Yep.
They got down to 0.
Yep.
Stayed at 0 for a long time. And then got up to like 20 for like a good week and a half, probably 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then was back down to 0. It's actually pretty darn close to 0 right now. Negotiations are still going on. But that's another thing that when you're looking ahead to the month of August is, does this this negotiation pause hold, or does Iran not give anything? And because Iran, frankly, has some more leverage here than they would in other times, because if you think about where we are in the year, we've got midterms coming up. Mm-hmm. Iran knows that midterms are going to be inflation's on people's minds, and that's going to be impacting how they're going to be voting here in the fall. Well, they have more leverage because, well, if they want a solution that's going to lower inflation and help the polls in November, well, they can hold out a little longer than they would have otherwise. So they're actually, it's very interesting. So for August, we're definitely looking ahead. Mm-hmm. What's going to be happening with the Iran situation, and then another thing that's happening right now: corporate earnings.
Yes.
Energy
every
quarter corporations have to report a lot of different metrics, but they're looking at revenue and looking at earnings and looking at all these things, and that publicly traded companies that legally have to do that. It's very hotly anticipated because that's essentially how we get an update of what these companies should be valued at, because we start to understand what's actually happening with the fundamentals of these companies. By and large, they've been very favorable. Energy stocks in particular, unsurprising.
Yes. Amazing
growth year over year. We're talking like practically triple digits on a lot of these things. And that's because higher oil prices, margins look very good for oil companies. Refiners particularly have just been off the charts. Marathon across the street, their stock's been going crazy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's been good for energy stocks, but it's been good for technology stocks. It's been good for cloud stocks. So a lot of that has looked pretty strong. Financials have looked really strong. Capital market stocks trading, like the equity side of trading things, look very, very good from all the major banks. Consumer credit companies, better than feared. A lot of people had feared that there was some consumer slowdown and some credit implications there, have not materialized. Has actually been pretty favorable. So that's been good there. You see things like industrials or even travel-related stocks. Delta, for example, doing very well. Consumers are still traveling. Consumers are still spending money. People are still buying airplanes. Boeing had a pretty good quarter as well. And then just other diversified businesses around the economy, you're seeing guidance being either maintained or sometimes actually lifted, meaning that corporations seem to be in a pretty good place right now. So that's something we're going to continue to keep our eyes on here in August is, do these still continue to come in strong? Most of the mega cap tech companies have come in relatively favorable. There's been a couple really good ones and a couple iffy ones, but overall, pretty decent. Yep. So yeah, we'll see.
And then finally, in July, the Trump accounts, which was a newly created investment account type created in the last bill they passed, officially came live in July.
It did.
Now, if you're filing your tax returns back in April, you actually could have filled out a form there that indicated your desire to have one opened. But now, if you didn't do that, you can open one up straight on the account, or the website, which is trumpaccounts.gov. And the idea of that is it's really the first retirement account for minors that doesn't have an income required to it for that minor. Right. So you could open up a minor Roth IRA, and you had to have earned income from that kid in order to contribute in there.
Yes.
This account does not have any earned income requirement. So a newborn can have this account opened.
And actually should.
Yes. And currently, they actually have built into that bill that they passed the first 2 years, if you have someone born, then you can have $1,000 put into the account by the government, the Treasury, to start funding it. And then there's some other grants and stuff out there that can help if you don't have a newborn, but you have a young kid. There's some other ways to get some funding started. Anybody can contribute, grandparents, parents, that type of stuff. An account worth looking into if you're thinking of ways to save for young people. It's designed to be a retirement account, so it's set up to be like an IRA style thing. So there's pre-tax money there as it grows, so you'll owe tax on distribution, but your initial dollars are after tax. So a lot of stuff you need to talk with your advisor about to make sure it makes sense. But it is a new account that became live in July.
Absolutely. So Trump accounts.
Are there.
And EpiPens
are still there.
and real news.
And actual things.
We gave it to you all in that video. But yeah, like we said earlier, Josh and Austin with Hixon Capital Management. Please remember, nothing we talked about is a recommendation. But if you have any questions about your financial situation, give us a call, 419-425-2400, or email us at hello@hzcapital.com. And until next one, have a good one.
Talk to you later. Bye.